So a little bit of context first. I have done hundreds and hundreds of zero trust migrations for some of the largest customers Cloudflare have, down to some of our smallest. And one of the bits repeatedly comes back out to me is that it's great for SaaS products and for cloud services, but can it actually replace my VPN? And can it actually work with my on-premise systems? And the short answer is yes. So that's really what the conversation today is about. So firstly, very quickly, we have a very broad portfolio of services at Cloudflare. This represents some best-of-breed solutions around zero trust, network as a service, and of course our base industry and controls of application services, where we built our reputation over the last 14 years. So a great opportunity for consolidation. It's a very unique service in that we truly have a software-defined platform where every feature runs on every metal. We have tens of thousands of metals, hundreds of data centers, and what is now the most interconnected network in the world, even more so than Google. So it's massive, massive scale. This is not only important in terms of the services and what's available to you, but actually what it really means is that we can actually offer 100% uptime SLA, and it's not hyperbole. Genuinely, half the world has to fail before our service goes down. And thankfully, touch wood, 4 or 5 years into the Zero Trust platform, it hasn't gone down yet. So what we're actually trying to do with Zero Trust is really, as Owen was suggesting in the previous conversation here, was actually remove the concept of a network. The whole idea is you're now building a user-to-resource model that's completely agnostic to where your resources are and actually what they are as well. We move officially 95% of the attack surface. You can't move east to west. You can't scan across the connections. And actually, you're continuously assessing that identity, leveraging additional controls like Threat Locker, like Azure and Intune and other platforms to give you context about risks on that service. But crucially, it will replace your VPN. As I say, ultimately, you'll move from a model that looks a bit like you have on the left here, the classic castle and moat network infrastructure, into a framework where Cloudflare can provide you identity-based controls for any resource, for both managed and unmanaged devices that allow interconnections from your offices. We can provide air gapping for your data centers. And again, we're agnostic to what resources are and where they are. And I think this really is the crutch of today's conversation. You've probably had a lot of SASE pictures in your life, but key part here is that you genuinely can replace a VPN. And these are some actual technical controls. I'm not going to get too deep into those, but we effectively give you 3 different levels of how you can actually manage your private resources and your local IP ranges, from individual one-off exceptions to pointing at your internal domain systems to literally having multiple virtual networks. Crucially, it allows you to put those conditional access controls and a modern identity in front of any system. The platform itself does not need to support the modern Azure, SAML, or OAuth identities. You can actually put those controls in front of any system you have. It also allows you to bring and build in the best-of-breed multi-factor controls, so things like hard-key authentication, proper context-based conditional access flows, akin to what you're going to hear from a lot of other vendors here this morning. And actually, it also then allows some real performance benefits. This is where we start to look at our CDN background and that massive infrastructure that we have. And actually, we spent the last decade or more optimizing TCP flows and moving traffic around the world. And we have the fastest HTTPS network and the fastest DNS platform. And actually, you would genuinely see an improvement in terms of your users' performance and access to internal systems, no matter where you are within the world. And then finally, we really get there is this consistency. And I think this is really the key part. We're getting lots of people come around and realizing the benefits of zero trust frameworks and SASE frameworks for modern systems and Salesforce, and enjoying platforms like Azure AD and the conditional access benefits that they can actually bring within that. But what this allows you to do is really extend that into your corporate network and truly replace those VPNs. It allows you to have the same consistent controls across your file shares, your legacy apps, your FIT client systems, as much as you would do with a modern platform like Salesforce with Azure and Intune and conditional access flows put in front of it from there. So crucially, this allows you to integrate both the latest and greatest features of the modern world, but actually also still support where you are or where you have been today. So please, if there's nothing else you took away from this today, is that can you genuinely replace a VPN? Yes, is the short answer. You can publish your entire LAN to providers like ourselves and actually start to bring some real security benefits and controls into those processes. Now, it is a modular approach typically, so we do give you a framework to move into, and this is just a good example of a sort of a typical rollout, a typical journey within a SASE framework. So we'd start by locking down those legacy systems, understanding IP clashes, understanding fit clients, and making sure we've got all the right routing and tunneling in place for all of that. Ultimately retiring through your VPN and moving into more modern controls like CASB and Web Gateway and perhaps even our network as a service tool sets like firewall or WAN as a service. But ultimately you can mix and match as suits you as an organization. So what this will really do is we're going to take you through this in a couple of different pictures here now, by the way. Really take you from the old world, which is probably typical to most of us. You'll see here, recognize a classic castle and moat infrastructure, very similar to all of us, I'm sure. And actually that allows you to move to something to look a lot more like this. Now the key parts of interest there for me are actually the bits where it says CNI, Cloud Network Interconnect or Cross Network Interconnect. And actually we can offer you some direct layer 2 connections from your major data center providers and all of your cloud locations. So you can start to air gap those frameworks and use Cloudflare's giant network as effectively your own private backbone for the whole of the internet. But you can see how much simpler that is compared to that previous slide where you've got multiple boxes, SD-WANs, firewalls, VPNs, one agent, one bit of routing, off you go. To make that another way, we take something that looks a bit like this with multiple solutions where you've got traffic going absolutely everywhere and routing across all different parts of the world to be able to provide the services and controls you want. To actually something that looks a bit more like this. Point everything at Cloudflare to your nearest point of presence. We are no more than 50 milliseconds away from anybody in the world. And then ultimately we can start to provide all the controls and services you ever may wish to use. Again, it's a modular platform. You can meet you where you are with both your legacy systems and your modern systems. And we can give you all the controls you might need. Thank you. Kept it short and sweet today. I'm not sure who's following up next after me, but hopefully that's, we'll see me over at the stand if there's any more questions on this.
Phill, will you take questions?
Yes, of course.
We've got 5 minutes.
Oh, I've gone ahead of time, forgive me. I got caught out last time myself, so I kept it deliberately short this time. So happy to answer any questions if there's any immediate thoughts, questions. Stunned silence, that's equally acceptable.
No questions? Okay, well you can catch up with Phill on the exhibition stand in the hall. His team will be there to service any questions you have. A lot to take in.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much indeed.
Not at all. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.